Okay, first, a quick little bit about me. I'm Chris Vanderwater. I'm a developer for Commerce Guys, and what I'm going to show you today is a module that I have built and that we use extensively called Context Admin. We'll talk a little bit about that real quickly, but first I want you to know everything I'm going to show you today is already done in demo format on the Context Admin page. So if you go there, there are YouTube videos of all of this stuff. There's about 40 minutes worth of video up there. And I fly through these videos. So I'm going to fly today too, since we're going to have a presentation tacked onto the front of it. So feel free to interrupt me and ask questions at any time. Just like throw a hand up. If I don't see you, blurt something out. There's a lot to really put together and understand here. So don't be afraid to be like, I don't know what you just did. I want to show you, I want you to understand. And if it's just really not doable in the time frame, we can take it out after the class, and I'd be happy to talk about it at length. So that's kind of the first thing. All right. So contextual administration, creating a new administration paradigm. We had an awful lot of conversation about this leading up to the whole Drupal 7 UX project. And it was at that time that I got the idea to start trying to really contextualize the administration that we were doing. I was working for the Works company at the time when I started this, and so they really funded a lot of the initial building of this module. So what this means is, typically if a client goes to, say, their news view, which is the example I'll show you today, what do they have? They've got a news view, and that's it. If they want to create new news, they have to know where to go to create new news. If they want to administer just news articles, they have to go into, administration, content, admin, sort by, news, all of that sort of stuff. And so it just becomes, all of our administration is all over the place in Drupal. So what's wrong with Drupal's administration? Well, it's strictly monolithic. Monolithic isn't necessarily a criticism in so much that that's bad. It's just that that's all it is. There is no other methodology for rearranging the administrative system by default in Drupal core. And that becomes really, really difficult when you're trying to teach a customer all these things that they need to know. You implement taxonomy for a customer, guess what? Now they need to know how to go administer the taxonomy on top of knowing how to administer the nodes that that taxonomy is added to and where to find the creation screen for those nodes, right? So that's really problematic. It's contextually ignorant, and what I mean by that is not only is it not in the right places, but it doesn't know anything about the stuff that is in the right places. It's just an admin screen. And as I mentioned already, it's kind of abstract and difficult to learn. Chances are you've all had some experience with this in your own careers or playtime inside of Drupal. So why is that bad? Well, it makes training a complete and utter nightmare. If you have to teach a client where they need to go to manage all of these individual things all the time, then the odds of them actually knowing that when you get done with a 2 or 3 hour session is pretty small, right? In fact, there are entire training companies formed just around how to use Drupal, right? Lullabot does this, Acquia is doing a lot of it, and I guess Acquia is actually licensing that out to people like Level 10 these days. So, I mean, it's obviously a problem, okay? It doesn't have to be a problem for your customers, though, and we'll get to that. It's not very usable, if I don't know where to actually administer something, I can't use it very well. And then what I call plasticity or reuse, you just don't get to reuse the administration system that's in core. Okay, you can't do anything with it. So how does context administration help? It provides a plastic, plugin-driven, context-aware administration tool, which you should have seen coming considering the last few slides. What does that mean? That means that since it's wrapped in the flexibility of Page Manager, we can take a given administration tool. You can write one if I haven't provided one that you need. You can sniff the context of the page that you're actually on, do something about that, and actually place it at any URL you want, right? So if you want to give your client the ability to create news from their news view, that's trivial, right? Just one small example. It's also, very handily, exportable, reusable, and features compatible. So once you build the admin system that you want, just export it all to features and drop it into Git like you would anything else, right? So I'm kind of a demo guy, so that's what we're going to do. I have 4 slides. Any questions before I get started? Or was that all pretty self-evident? Yeah? Okay, so here we are, we have a news view. Okay, I'm not logged in, all I see is news. So if we go back to news, you're going to see I have a whole lot of new stuff here, right? The first thing that I'm going to draw your attention to is that this is not a view, this is a view inside a panel. That's a completely different topic that we can talk about other times, but understand I don't use views pages. You will probably not see that at all in this demo because I don't think I'm using it. So we talked about create news. Well, there we are. I can now create news straight from the news page, right? That's sort of handy. All of our tabs maintain themselves up here, but I'm just going to draw your attention to the fact that they were here as well. So if I want to administer my news, there are all my news articles, right? This is a views bulk operation. I just chose what I wanted to have the ability to get to, and there it is, right? Expose it to the user who I want to see it, and they can make use of it, right? Now, taxonomy actually became a bit more useful from an exportability perspective in Drupal 7. So if we decided to use that, then here's a list of all the terms available on news right now. That's sort of handy. If I want to edit my vocabulary, I've got that. If I want to add new terms, I've got that too, right? All right here. Customer doesn't have to know squat about how Drupal works. They just have to know if I want to do anything for a given section, go visit it, right? All your administration is there. We encapsulated it all, right? So it becomes really, really powerful. I'm not going to demo all of this stuff I'm going to mention right now, but you know that extends out to other areas. Like, anybody ever had a need to give users of a particular role the ability to add users of another role? Yeah, Drupal can't do that. Like, good luck, right? But context admin can, right? So if we want to give, say, news administrators the ability to add news reporters, we could do that, right? So, and if we have time, I'll demo that. So, any questions before I go into the next couple examples? Nothing? Really? Okay. Like I said, a lot of this stuff is fairly self-evident. I mentioned contextually aware, right? So here's an article. We visit the article. Some of you will notice that I have an Add Images tab here, right? I don't have a view actually showing the images that I've added yet, which is sort of stupid of me, but hey, whatever. So if I want to come in here, I can say test image 10. I'm just going to pick a new number. We'll browse. All right. Right, so what I want to draw your attention to is there's a body, there's an image field, there's a title. The rest of it, very much straightforward, right? So we're just creating a new image node or whatever. I hit save, and you'll notice, like, it tells me that my image node has been created, but I'm still on my test article, right? So let's go find content. Okay, there it is. There's my image. There's a node reference back to my test article. Did anybody see a node reference on the previous screen? No. Anybody ever used, what's Nate's module? Node reference URL, I think? Yeah. So node reference URL is actually kind of similar to this, except this is consuming context from a page manager page. So if I wanted to, I could load up the node for the page that we're on, find a reference from it, and then pass that reference through here instead of the node that we were actually on. Right? If I wanted to, I could have found all the terms applied to the news article and passed all of those terms to this node to have it applied. That would require a custom plugin to do, but it should be fairly trivial. So if we wanted to apply all the terms on the parent news article to any images created for it automatically, no asking from the user, we could do stuff like that. So we're contextually aware of where we are. Okay. No questions still? Does this stuff make sense? Or am I just like totally out in left field? Because we've been doing this, let's see, Context Admin module has been around for over a year now. It's got about 140 people using it, 140 sites, right? I know the Nerdery uses it regularly. I know Open Sourcery is putting it into all of their builds at this point, or at least so I've been told. Commerce Guys uses it for almost everything that they do, and I built it for the Works company, so I know they use it for everything they do. So, you know, this has been useful to at least 4 fairly well-known Drupal shops. I'm trying to expose everybody else to it, right? So let's actually like kind of dig into these and see how they work. Come back to news. We'll just do the really simple create news article. I can come in and I can go edit context admin. And for those of you who've ever used panels, this page is going to look fairly familiar to you. What you may not know is that this is not panels, this is page manager. Actually, we'll come back. We'll edit a panel first. So the only thing that is panels on this page is layout, content, and preview, right? The rest of this is page manager. So those 3 things can be thrown away and you could put something totally different there. If you wanted to, I don't know, manage an administrative tool that you want to put at a path, right? So when we come into a context admin one, you'll see it has content and content settings. So this is pretty simple. I told it I want to create a node that is a news article. If you wanted to create a node that was a news article and was in a default state of unpublished based upon the role of the person creating it, you could do that too, right? I'm actually probably going to roll that into this existing plugin at some point. But, you know, the whole idea here is that since we have the power of Page Manager sitting behind us, and we can actually figure out who's viewing this page before we give them the page, we can control stuff like that. So users of this role can just create nodes. Users of this role get their nodes unpublished and it goes into a queue somewhere, right? I keep saying users of this node, don't I? Role. Role. So, I mean, there's a lot of, there's so many nuances here I couldn't even begin to throw them all out, but you have the ability to check a lot more than a permission, right? It's no longer like, does this user have a permission? Is this user of this role? We could say, you know, well, I'll throw that example out. It exists. Okay. So let's just look at this a little bit. We'll come into basic, and you'll see that this is at news/add, right? Okay, well, if my news page is news, then news/add for adding stuff makes sense. Access. Who can get this? Only users with the permission of create new news content, right? I really need to fix that. It's sort of ugly. But we could add all sorts of new stuff to it, like users of a particular role, execute arbitrary PHP code to determine whether they have access to this, what theme are we running, right? We could check all that sort of stuff. You could write new checks and have those show up here. So if we don't provide something good enough for you, probably 50 to 100 lines of code later, you could have any check on the face of the planet you want and throw it in there, right? And so when you see access here, access actually determines whether or not someone can see the link. Selection criteria down here, selection rules, of which I'll have none, actually determines what content they get delivered. Okay? So that whole example of if they're a role of this, it's unpublished to begin with. If they're a role of that, it's published. Like, that would be selection criteria, right? That's actually kind of complex. I'm going to do a whole page manager session at 2 o'clock today in this same room. So I'm going to fly through a little of this, but I'll hit that really, really hard in that session. So if you're unfamiliar with the topics that I'm kind of going over here, please show back up and I'll explain that in more detail. So, I mean, we're in the page manager interface. There are usually people who are lost at this point. Please feel free to admit if you are. What can I show you? Anybody? Anything? All right, well then let's just look at another. Administer. So as I mentioned, this is a views bulk operation, but it's still controlled by context admin. So we'll just look at the good stuff. Content. Oh, views administration. Okay, that was easy. Content settings. Oh, yeah, sorry. News and both is actually what the settings are on that one. So I want nodes of type news and publishing options of both published and unpublished, right? So if I wanted to provide a tool on the same URL that users of a particular role can only administer already published stuff, I could do that, right? So I maintain the ability to publish and unpublish things and actually look at what's going on there, and then they get, whether it's they get the ability to just manage published stuff, could totally do that sort of stuff. Yeah.
So how does this, if you go back to the previous page, the actual use bulk operation page.
Oh.
So you know, you're talking about showing the user published or not published and stuff being the context admin. But what about the filters in the view and stuff? How do those work together? Does that make sense?
So we have, I mean, I guess it's not technically an exposed filter within VBO.
No. I mean, this page here, is this a regular view that you built?
This is, so this is a view in code that context admin hits that code and deploys new versions of based upon the settings that are available to you. Okay. So when we come in here and we go to that page that's throwing me all the red errors, oh yay, they went away. When we come in here and you say, I want news articles that are both published and unpublished, I have a code in view that grabs that information, shoves it into the code view, and then saves it into views. Yeah. And then the context admin, its render operation, knows what view it should show there, and it just loads that up and spits it out. So it's pretty straightforward from a code standpoint. Okay, let's go into topics, right? So this one's actually kind of complicated from a lot of perspectives. But if we come in here, how many of you work with I'm going to use the technical term, menu local tasks? Yeah? Awesome! The rest of you should really understand it. So if we come into menus here, Page Manager actually has the ability to deploy tabs, right? Which is like all the tabs you've seen today, almost every single one of them are deployed by Page Manager. And so what I'm telling it is that I want a default menu tab with a title of list, a weight of 0, and its parent item is going to be another menu tab whose name is topics, and give that a weight of 11. And when we do that, that creates this topics tab and creates this list tab simultaneously. And it gives me the ability to add edit and add terms tabs to the secondary level. Yes, I see nodding. That's good.
And you're not sleeping?
So, yeah, not sleeping. So, who has access to this? The user has a role of administrator. Only admins have access to this tab. Okay, cool. Content. What is this? This is a vocabulary options page. Use that vocabulary, list the terms from it. Yeah, Corey.
On the previous tab, is it content? It's just hard to read. Are those provided by your module, and then we can write additional ones? But those are the
yeah. So the question for the recording here is: are these? Can you add more of these? Yes. This is the plugin type we're talking about right here. Okay. So you write a new context admin plugin. It's probably, you know, depending upon how complicated you want to get, it's maybe 100 lines to 400 lines of code, depending. You know, you could do something really, really simple, but I don't know how much of a utility it would be. But yeah, clear cache, it'll show up in this list. Right? So this comes back to the whole like reusable idea. You build an administrative tool that works for the kind of customers that you work with on a daily basis, chances are you're going to get that thing pretty generic and take it from one site to the next, to the next, to the next. And it becomes part of that tool set that you just bring along with you. And if you think it's useful enough that everybody else in the community should have it, write a patch and drop it into my issue queue, right? There's an issue for the ability to create any new entity right now. That would depend upon Entity API, and I'm actually very interested in making that happen, but you know, there are ramifications there. But, I mean, you could write some really cool plugins here. For those of you unfamiliar with the CTools plugin architecture, very technically speaking here for a moment, you can even write a plugin that has a for each loop in it that generates plugins. So if you have a tool where you're like, instead of having vocabulary options here, I could have done one that was just list. And in fact, whenever I build this out again, I probably will. So I could have provided a plugin that finds all vocabularies and an option to just create a list version of it here all at once. So you just do a single click, save, you're done. You have a list, right? So there are those sorts of things available too, just as an FYI. But yeah, there's a lot of like, the problem is that this is really complicated, but my analogy is always to like you could get a little hand drill, right? Or you could get a drill that'll drill through anything. Diamond tip, does whatever, right? If you take that and you use it against your washing machine, you could really screw it up, but that drill did exactly what you told it to, right? This is that drill. You could do anything with this tool that you want to within the confines of what it does. This deploys pages. If you need to do something, Drupal is a page deployment system. That's what it is. It's like a really awesome form API and a really awesome menu system. The rest of it is mostly fluff. I mean, that's not technically true, but for most developers, what do you do on a daily basis? You build forms and you build stuff to show up at pages. Right?
Yeah.
Am I wrong? No, that's what most of you probably do on a daily basis. Okay, so right at Page Manager compliant, you now have a reusable tool that you just plug in and say appear at this page. Contextually aware, plastic, can show up anywhere. Just store it in a plugin directory, right? We'll talk more about that in the Page Manager session. So, the rest of this is all the same. If we come into add terms real quick, because that one's kind of cool, it's going to be the exact same thing. Content, it's a vocabulary option, settings, news, add, right? How many of you all think you could probably use a tool like this? Yeah? How many of you will use my tool? Right. Okay. So.
Put that in deep pickup lines.
Yeah, oh. Yeah, we're going to leave that one alone. All right, so let's look at a more complicated example. This is the add image that we did, right? If we come in here and we take a look at it, we'll just look at the cool stuff real quick. It's a create node with auto node reference. Some of you may have noticed we have a lot more options here than we have had on the previous pages. Anybody want to venture a guess as to why?
More plugins, more context.
Well, the plugins are still there, the context. Yeah, that's right. We have a node context available to us here. So we have things like edit node, create node with node reference, view node. Those are the three new things that showed up here, right? We'll look at all of them. But we're doing a create node with auto node reference right now. And so we're like, okay, well, context. Oh, I don't see anything here. Oh, that's because it's being passed as an argument, right? Okay. So we now have the node from the URL being passed to us. What do I want to do with it? Well, in my content settings, yeah, I know. Shut up. Okay, so this is actually kind of cool to go through. Here, we'll come back to it. So you'll ignore the big red errors. I think I have that fixed in my newest version, so I'll have to double check. This is kind of an old version of Context Admin that I'm running. You'll see that we have a listing of all of the contexts that are available to us. We only have one. I can only pick one. As I said, if there were some way to get to another node, if you had some referenceable way, or if you just wanted to load up an arbitrary node and say all images ever added are referenced to this node, you could do that, right? But in this case, we're just saying the node coming across the URL, load it up as a context and pass it to me. And then what context admin does is it says select a node type you would like to create. Well, what it's actually done here is it's filtered down. I have more node types than this. It's filtered down to only the node types that have a node reference field on them. So you can't pick something that doesn't have a node reference already, right? And then once you are there, it shows you all the fields that are node reference fields on that node type. So you could have multiple node reference fields, and I'm not just going to assume this is going into that because it's the only one on there. No, you pick. You tell me what node reference field you want. If you're using another node reference on the news image type for something else, I'm not just going to populate that with my stuff, right? You pick. We want it to be on an article. Then we have some other options. Do we want to forward the user back to the node they were on before we created this node? Yes or no? We also can give them a custom redirect, right? So some of you all will have noticed that I just sent them back to that page, but we have a custom redirect, and all the substitutions available from our various contexts are here. So you could do something like, I'll actually show how this sort of stuff gets formatted in another example. Yeah, Corey?
Is that the one that they came from?
Yes.
Node, or the one that's just now being created?
This is the one they came from. The one that's being created is where you'll get shipped off by default, right? I mean, that's what Drupal does. So the other thing that the plugin does is context admin plugins are kind of unique. For those of you who've ever worked with CTools plugin architecture, typically it's kind of a design by contract sort of thing. Like you have a list of stuff that you can put in there. But context admin actually exposes a function to let you expose new hooks to it. So like the node insert and the form API hooks are already exposed to context admin, which is why when we end up on this render page, we don't see the node reference field, right? I'm altering it out in the plugin. The plugin will do that work for me. If we come to add content and we go to news image, there's the node reference field, right? So I haven't actually affected anyone who's not using the context. The only people who get affected are the people who actually click that Add Images tab, right? You could potentially even say forward someone back to the Add Images tab so that they can just keep adding images until they're done, which could be pretty useful, actually. Any questions thus far?
This might be a silly question, but how would you add another tab, like another admin tab, say to this page?
If, say, we wanted to administer all of the images that are referenced here or something?
Sure.
Sure. I won't do it, but I'll walk you through it real quick. You'd come into views. You'd create a view that shows that stuff, right? Because I don't have a context admin plugin for it. If you found yourself doing this on a daily basis, it'd probably be worth your while to build a context admin plugin for it, right? But we come in, we build a view. I probably don't need to walk you through that. You know, takes an argument, shows all nodes by that node reference that are news images. Great, cool. Then we come into pages. We add a new page. And that page is going to end up showing at node, %node. Let's see. There's add image. Well, we don't want that. We want admin images, right? Okay. And then you just make this a panel and show your view there. And the rest of it is all in menu settings. So we can just look at this one for the menu settings. And the menu settings are just menu tab, add images. Well, I'd make it menu tab, admin images, and give it a weight of like 11 or something, right? Yeah. It's not a stupid question. Like, Page Manager is sort of complicated. The reason it's complicated is because it's a user interface to hook menu, and hook menu is not simple. So, and Page Manager actually only implements about half of what's in hook menu. So, thank God for small favors, I guess. But, you know, that kind of persists. there's a lot of stuff in here. You can get really lost in the interface the first few times until you understand what's going on. And so it's kind of my mission to make sure people understand what's going on. Right? The first kind of step to understanding that is panels is not page manager. Neither is context admin. They're both just plugin systems to it. So let's look at something really crazy. Find content. What is this? That is Node 7. Great. So currently we are on Node 5. So if I get rid of this and go to Node 5, right, same node. So I have one, image 7, right? Now, the astute of you will notice that we're showing a node on something that's not a node URL, right?
Right.
I'm at node 5, image 7, showing a news image node. That news image node also has an edit tab, right? Well, if you try to visit, this should work, node 7, it sends you to node 5, image 7. You all may not have been able to see that since it's kind of tiny. Let me, oh yeah, there we go. Right? Everybody got that this time?
Yes.
Awesome. So, how am I doing that? Page Manager. So pages, we have a node view page. If I edit this, you'll see that I have a news images in here. And this is pretty simple. What are we? We're a 301 redirect. Right? We're a 301 redirect to node %node2 NID image %node NID. Right? So that said, you came in on node 7. That's %node. That node, the image node, has a node reference back to the news article that it's relevant from, loaded up as %node2. We have, let's see, I guess we're actually not showing those here. In contexts, if we come over here, we have all of the tokens relevant to those contexts here. So I wanted %node NID and %node2 NID, which you probably could have guessed were the right names. And I told it just redirect to this URL. Okay, well that's one part of it. That URL doesn't actually exist. So, yeah, let's go back to pages. Let's find it. Oh, look, there it is. %node, %image, view. Edit. Context admin, what are you? I'm a node view of node 2, right? Which in this instance is our image. What does that even mean? Let's go to arguments. Well, no, let's go to basic. This is our URL, node, %node, image, %image, view. For those of you who use tabs on a regular basis, you will know that when we look at the menu system that's attached to this, view is going to be a default tab for a menu callback, right? That's what it is. By the way, I marked this as intermediate to get it picked. It's actually advanced. So, yeah, so what this is going to do is we now tell Page Manager what these arguments we're passing it are. Just because it says %node doesn't mean that it is a node. I could tell that that's a term. And it would load up terms of the same ID as the node that's being passed, right? Which you probably shouldn't ever try. So when we come back into arguments, we have a %node and a %image, both of which are node IDs, which it found in position 1 and 3. For those of you who've ever used page display argumented views, and been like in a whole lot of pain because you're having trouble figuring out where your arguments actually are, this is your savior, right? Like the understanding of how to set these up will ultimately give you crazy, crazy abilities inside of views. It was all designed to work together that way. So when we come back to the content settings for our node view, we have 2 nodes available here. I could change it and tell it that I want to display the news article, but it'd be sort of weird to display the news article at another URL. In fact, a whole bunch of URLs. For every image you add, it would display the news article. What we want is to display the image, and that's our second node context. All right, I'm sure I confused somebody.
Now, what happens if you just put an image out there without attaching it? One doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be able to do that through. So we structured you into a system where you're going to create a node when you add images of this type. So like you don't actually have options there.
Because it's another type of news.
That's right. That's right. There are ways to just randomly add images to the system, and Page Manager, if you have panels and if you have panels and media installed, can actually take individual media elements and just display them on a page somewhere. For those of you who care, it's really useful for video, being able to just say, "Show this video on this page," right? Really, really useful. We also have an edit tab, which you'll also notice is context admin, and it's got all the same insanity in it, except when you come to content, it's an edit node referencing our node 2. So there's a question, yeah?
Well, you mentioned, can you add an image and not reference, in this case, an article, but I don't know if it would be an option, but you could always use, instead of just the autocomplete, use the node reference create, so and still make it a required field. So you have to put in something, but if your article doesn't exist and you're just for whatever reason adding the image first, it will create the article and you just go in and add the text.
Sure, and that's sort of like a different workflow. In this case, like one of the things that context admin is really good at is enforcing a workflow for your customers, right? You say you're going to create news articles, and then, well, strangely, once you have that, we'll let you add images to it, right? So we enforced a workflow. Becomes really, really, really powerful once you get the hang of it. There are a few weird artifacts on this page that I haven't bothered to fix because nobody's using node view and complaining about it, but yeah, Corey.
And for the node reference, is that coming with your module as well? Or
Yeah, the node reference one comes with my module.
And does it hide it when you're editing the picture? Or
When you hit edit on this, it will actually show the node reference, so they could change it at this time. If you didn't want that, you'd need to write a custom plugin, but it probably wouldn't be a real huge issue. And again, I'm in IRC all day, every day on like #Drupal dash just about anything, so I'm pretty easy to find. And I love like getting people into this and showing them how it works.
What's your name on there?
Eclipse GC.
Is that just about anything, all one word?
Yes, those are separated by dashes actually. So let's edit this context admin again. You'll remember I said we could do some really crazy things as far as access goes. So let's see something kind of crazy. This says you may not view this image node unless the news or the node 1 context is a node type of news. If that's true, then check to see that node ID 2 is a type, a bundle of news image. If that's true, check to see if the logged in user has node access privileges to the news article. And if that's true, then check to make sure that this image actually has a node reference to that news article. If all those things are true, then you can see this, right?
That's to prevent people kind of URL hacking their way around.
Yeah. I mean, you could attempt to URL hack this, but if it's not an image on that news article and you don't have access to see it, you won't get it. Yeah. So really, really, really useful sort of stuff in here. And that reference comparison is actually provided by context admin, because I do weird crap like this. Okay. Let's see. Anybody know what time this ends?
10:50.
Okay. So I have about 6 minutes. I finished a little early. Questions? Anybody have questions? Yeah, Corey.
I have a million questions.
Go.
Start first.
Yeah. No.
Prioritize and
So
do it.
For all of the taxonomy tabs that you had, the secondary tabs, each one of those was a page, right?
Yes. It's each one of those individually is a page manager controlled
Okay,
page.
and so is everything. Now, how does this work out practically speaking for you time-wise in building it? How long did it take you to put this together, knowing that you know the system?
About 2 hours. Everything you saw today, just going through and putting it all together, took me, the first time I did it, about 2 hours. That being said, you'll recall I mentioned the project page. All these videos are the creation of everything you have seen today. They're about 40 minutes in length, altogether. Okay? I'm really short, sweet, and to the point in every last one of them. There are some of them that are 3 minutes long. There are some that are 7. I think my longest is 15, which is showing that whole like node view, node edit on crazy URLs insanity, right? But on average, like basically they bounce back and forth between 3 minutes and 7 minutes. So you can do this stuff pretty quickly if you want to learn it. And I mean, then, you know, functionally we've created a pretty like robust and usable news module. Like, my objective is to finish this with all the videos that I intend on doing, and then release it as a module on Drupal.org for other people to screw around with. I'm going to add in a few more like really crazy how did he do that sort of stuff that I'll demo in video. But like there's a lot of panel stuff I want to do to this before I just release it. So, but the objective here is I'm giving you videos that show you how to do this. I want to give you a module that shows you how I did it. And then hopefully people just go nuts with that. You can do some really, really, really crazy stuff. Like I'm not going to try to demo this one yet because I haven't doubly made sure that it works on 7. But in 6 we did this all the time where we would say like you're on node%node, right? And that is a participant in the primary navigation system. How many of you have ever tried to teach the menu system to a customer? Okay, I'm going to assume that every last one of you who has tried has failed. Right? Because that's just kind of how it works. I actually, do I have this? I'm guessing. No, I'm not going to try to guess. Oh, wait. If I can find it quickly, I have time to show it. htdocs, admin paradigm.
It may take 2 hours to figure it out, but the ROI, we've had an 85% drop in phone calls asking, how do I do that?
Okay, so if I come to, this is a Drupal 6 site, if I come to, this is an About Us page, so node%node, you'll see I have an add subpage. And you can't see it, but it is node%node add subpage, right? When you click this, this is consuming node 6 as a context. And what it does when you create and save this is it adds a new item, a new child to the menu system, right? So the customer wants to add a new child to About Us. They click Add Subpage, fill it out, and hit Save. Done. They want to add a new child to that? Great. You know, I think I actually have some in here that should have subpages. History, maybe? Wow. Oh, yeah. Those are up here. So they want to add a child to history? You can do that. Just hit Add Subpage. Done. Right? Oh, actually, this isn't going to be as clean or as clear because it's Drupal 6. But if I come into Pages and we look at Add Subpage, Edit, I also provide an access plugin for it that checks the menu depth of the current node. So you could actually say, I only want the user to be able to do this on the top level menu items. They can only have 2 levels of navigation. Or, as I've done, 9 levels, right? So if we go to 2, hit save, update and save, go back to About Us. About Us has an add subpage. Come over here to history. History doesn't anymore. Right? So, I mean, you can do some really crazy, crazy crap with this. And those are just the plugins that I have written. Like, write something cool. You can do really crazy stuff with it. Any other questions? We probably have to take it offline at this point. Yeah, Cash?
It's all exportable.
Say that again?
It's all exportable.
All exportable. Yeah, you need to watch what you're doing on that to some extent, because if you start working with taxonomy, obviously there are issues there. I've tried to make all my taxonomy specific stuff totally exportable, but the taxonomy bundles access handlers. So like if you do a panel of a particular taxonomy vocabulary, that's not going to be exportable in a usable fashion just yet. I'm trying to get it into Page Manager, and I just haven't taken the time, and I apologize. Yes.
The subpage, add subpage, and how you change like the menu depth and all that kind of stuff. Is that plugin already for the D7? Or is it only for D6?
When it is, you will see a video show up for it.
Okay.
And it's the next one on my list.
And you have a video for the D6 version already?
No, I don't have videos for the D6 versions. I have no intention of making them. Most of what I show should just work in D6, though. So you should just be able to follow along in the D7 version and go. There's nothing in there that's fundamentally different.
Why am I not the same?
Yeah. Page Manager changed a lot, but it's like visual representation of stuff really didn't. So, are there other questions? No? Hit me up afterwards and we'll talk more.